The council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive sphere of crystal and light that had witnessed countless wars and treaties. Inside its main hall, 3 representatives sat at a triangular table that had remained unchanged for 200,000 years. Each representative embodied the power of empires so vast that entire galaxies bent to their will. High Executor Vrathkor of the Vortak hegemony was the first to arrive, as always. His crystalline body refracted light into sharp cutting patterns across the chamber walls. The Vortak had conquered more worlds than any species could count. Their technology was perfection itself, refined over millennia. Vrathkor carried himself with the certainty of someone who had never known defeat. Across from him materialized Hive Queen Zisara, her insectoid form clicking and chittering as thousands of lesser minds connected to her consciousness. The Jinn collective operated as one vast organism spread across 1,000 worlds. When Zara spoke, billions spoke with her. When she thought, entire planets responded. Her compound eyes reflected a cold, calculating intelligence that had outmaneuvered rivals for eons. The third seat belonged to the Eternal Prime, a being of pure energy contained within a form that hurt to perceive directly. The Luminarchs were older than stars, creatures that had transcended flesh millions of years ago. They built their cities inside nebulas and forged matter from thought. To them, the physical universe was merely a suggestion. Between these 3 powers, the galaxy had been divided and kept in balance. Other species existed, of course, but only as subjects or vassals. The strong ruled, the weak served. This was the natural order, and it had remained stable for longer than most civilizations could remember. Council Arbiter Nemtoth, an ancient being whose species had long ago withdrawn from galactic politics, floated at the center of the triangle. Nemtoth's role was simple: observe, record, and ensure the 3 powers never broke their ancient compact. As long as they kept their wars between themselves and not against the smaller species, the galaxy remained relatively peaceful. "We gather for the Millennial Summit." Nemtoth's voice echoed through the chamber. "What matters require discussion." Vrathkor's crystals rang like bells. "The border disputes between my fleets and the collective continue." 17 systems claimed by both parties. Those systems were promised to the collective after the War of the Burning Rim. Zara clicked sharply. "Your expansion violates the Treaty of..." "Enough!" The Eternal Prime's voice was like wind through empty corridors. "We have discussed this for 3 summits. The systems will be split. 7 to the hegemony, 10 to the collective. This is decided." Both Vrathkor and Zisara began to protest, but the Luminarch's energy form pulsed with warning. Neither empire wished to fight the Luminarchs. Not yet, anyway. Both representatives settled back with visible irritation. "Are there other matters?" Nemtoth asked, hoping to move through the agenda quickly. These summits usually devolved into posturing and threats. "Actually, yes." Zisara's mandibles clicked with what might have been amusement. "We have received a transmission from a species in the Outer Rim. Sector 7719, a world calling itself Earth." "Earth?" Vrathkor's form brightened with interest. "I know this sector. Unclaimed space between our territories. What of it?" "They sent a diplomatic message," Zara continued, "requesting contact with galactic civilization. They appear to have recently developed primitive, faster-than-light communication." The Eternal Prime's energy dimmed slightly. "How primitive?" "Very." Zara projected a hologram into the center of the table. A bipedal creature appeared, standing on 2 legs with soft flesh and no natural weapons. The creature wore artificial coverings and spoke into a recording device. "This is their ambassador. They call him Chen Wei," the hologram played. "Greetings from the people of Earth," the human said in translated standard galactic language. His face showed what the translation matrix identified as nervousness and hope. "We have recently discovered we are not alone in the universe. We come in peace and friendship, hoping to learn from older, wiser civilizations. We have much to offer in exchange for knowledge and guidance." Vrathkor's laughter rang like shattering glass through the chamber. "Offering us guidance? What could such primitives possibly offer?" The hologram continued with technical readouts. Chemical rockets, basic fusion reactions, nuclear fission weapons, electromagnetic communication. By galactic standards, this species had barely crawled out of its cave. "They are children playing with fire," the Eternal Prime observed with what might have been pity. "Children who have been busy," Zisara added. Our long-range scans show they have been mining their system's asteroid belt extensively over the past 50 of their years. They appear to be building something in deep space. Colony ships, no doubt, Vrathkor said dismissively. All young species expand within their birth systems before they learn their place in the wider galaxy. Nemtoth, who had been silent, spoke quietly. Perhaps we should respond with caution. Unknown species can surprise. Vrathkor's form pulsed with indignation. Look at them. They still use projectile weapons and chemical propulsion. My empire was fighting wars with quantum disruptors when we were at their level of development. They are at least 10,000 years behind the galactic standard. The Arbiter makes a point, the Eternal Prime said. Every species deserves initial respect until respect must be earned. Shara's clicking grew sharper. But I agree they should be answered, if only to prevent them from blundering into claimed territory and causing incidents. I will handle it, Vrathkor announced suddenly. His crystalline form brightened with eagerness. The system borders my space. I will send a subjugation fleet. Standard protocol. They will be offered protectorate status under the hegemony. They will accept or be pacified. Simple. You would go to war over a diplomatic greeting? Nemtoth's voice carried warning. War? Vrathkor laughed again. This will not be war, old one. This will be education. These Earth creatures will learn the reality of the galaxy. They will learn that hope and friendship mean nothing without power. They will learn their place. The Eternal Prime's energy form swirled thoughtfully. The hegemony has conducted 3,000 successful subjugations. I see no reason to deny this request. The humans will benefit from Vortok guidance even if it comes at the end of a plasma cannon. Zisara's mandibles clicked in agreement. Better they learn now than stumble into the collective's territory later. At least Vrathkor's methods are direct. Nemtoth wanted to protest further but knew it was pointless. The three empires had made their decision. The ancient Arbiter had seen this scene play out countless times over the millennia. A young species reaches for the stars. The old empires crush them. The survivors become servants. The cycle continued endlessly. Then it is decided, Vrathkor declared. I will dispatch Subjugation Fleet Omega-7. 300 warships, enough to glass their entire world if necessary. But I suspect they will see reason once my fleet arrives in their space. Most species do. How long until your fleet arrives at Earth? The Eternal Prime asked. 17 days by quantum slip drive. Plenty of time to prepare a proper demonstration of power. The hologram of Ambassador Chen Wei continued playing in the background, speaking earnestly about peace and cooperation. The three Empire representatives ignored it completely. They had heard such speeches from 1,000 dying species before. Before we adjourn, Zara said. Our analysts reviewed their transmissions. These humans have an unusual amount of cultural focus on warfare. Their entertainment, their history, their literature. They seem obsessed with conflict despite their peaceful greeting. All primitive species are violent, Vrathkor said. They lack the civilization to transcend base instincts. All the more reason to bring them under control quickly. Nevertheless, Zara continued, their mining operations are extensive, far more than typical pre-contact species. And their construction in deep space shows sophisticated engineering, even if the underlying technology is crude. Your concern is noted and dismissed, Vrathkor said. In 17 days, Earth will be part of the hegemony. In 17 years, they will have forgotten they ever dreamed of standing as equals among the stars. The summit concluded with the usual protocols and formalities. Vrathkor departed first, already composing the orders for his fleet. Zisara and the Eternal Prime followed soon after, their attention already turning to other matters. Earth was insignificant, a footnote, not worth extended thought. Only Nemtoth remained in the empty chamber, watching the hologram of Chen Wei repeat his hopeful greeting over and over. The ancient Arbiter had a feeling, nothing more than a whisper of intuition earned over millions of years of observation. Something about the human's eyes, something about the careful way he chose his words, something about that extensive mining operation in deep space. Perhaps, Nemtoth said to the empty room, you have surprised us already and we are too blind to see it. But there was no one to hear this warning. The three empires had already decided Earth's fate. 17 days. That was all the time Earth had left before the Vortak subjugation fleet arrived. 17 days before 300 warships emerged from quantum slipspace and demanded immediate surrender. 17 days before the humans would learn their place in the galactic hierarchy, or so the empires believed. Far away, in the Sol system, Ambassador Chen Wei received the notification that his transmission had been received by the Galactic Council. He read the automated response message, saw the technical analysis of Earth's primitive capabilities, noted the Vortok fleet dispatch order that some careless functionary had left unencrypted. Chen Wei smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone whose carefully laid trap was about to spring shut. Captain Okonkwo, he spoke into his communicator. They took the bait. Subjugation fleet inbound 17 days. 300 ships exactly as projected. The voice that answered was calm and cold. Understood, Ambassador. Ragnarok is ready. All systems operational. Let them come. Chen Wei looked out at Earth from his orbital station. Humanity's homeworld gleamed blue and green and beautiful in the darkness. No great weapons, no energy shields, no quantum drives. Just a single species that had clawed its way up from stone tools to spaceflight in a cosmic eye blink. Just a species that had spent 50 years listening to galactic transmissions before announcing itself. 50 years studying every empire's tactics, technology, and psychology. 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. The great empires thought Earth was primitive. They thought humans were children. They thought this would be simple. They were about to learn the most important lesson in the galaxy. There is a vast difference between being primitive and being weak, and humanity was about to teach that lesson in blood and fire and shattered crystal. The countdown had begun. 17 days until the Vortok arrived. 17 days until the galaxy changed forever. 17 days until the age of empires began to crumble. High Executor Vrathkor watched the Sol system grow larger on his command display. 17 days had passed since the Council Summit. His fleet of 300 warships had traveled through quantum slip space and now emerged at the edge of the human home system like deadly crystal flowers, blooming in the void. Each Vortok warship was a masterpiece of engineering. Shields that could deflect star-core plasma, weapons that could crack planets, sensors that could detect a heartbeat from a light year away. These ships had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had never known defeat. Open communication channels to the planet Earth, Vrathkor commanded. Let them see what true power looks like. The communication officer's crystalline form chimed acknowledgement. Across all human frequencies, the message broadcast with overwhelming force. Vrathkor's image appeared on every screen, every device, every display on Earth and its colonies. People of Earth, his voice rang like funeral bells. I am High Executor Vrathkor of the Vortok Hegemony. Your transmission to the Galactic Council has been received and processed. Your request for contact is granted. However, you must understand your position. You are children playing in a universe of powers beyond your comprehension. The hegemony offers you protectorate status. You will surrender all military assets. You will provide resources and labor as required. You will accept Vortok guidance in all matters. In return, you will be allowed to exist. You have one planetary rotation to respond with your unconditional acceptance. Failure to comply will result in military pacification. This is the only offer you will receive. Vrathkor closed the channel and settled back to wait. They always accepted. Sometimes they argued first, made speeches about freedom and dignity, but they always accepted. The alternative was annihilation. 1 hour passed. 2, 3. The communication channels remained silent. Status of the human worlds? Vrathkor asked. Strange, Executor, the sensor officer reported. Earth appears to be evacuating. We detect massive population movements underground. Mars colony has gone silent. The asteroid belt mining stations are abandoned. They flee into holes like frightened prey, Vrathkor said with satisfaction. This will be easier than expected. But something nagged at him. This was too organized, too prepared. As if they had known the fleet was coming. Continue scanning. Find their military assets. Even primitives have warships. The fleet moved deeper into the system, passing the outer planets. Neptune, Uranus, Saturn with its beautiful rings, Jupiter's massive form, still no sign of human military forces. Executor, we are detecting automated distress beacons on Earth. Thousands of them, all broadcasting in standard galactic frequencies. What do they say? Please help us. Unknown fleet approaching. We mean no harm. Please help. The officer paused. They are broadcasting to the entire galaxy. Vrathkor's form pulsed with anger. Clever. They hope someone will intervene, but the Council does not interfere with subjugations. This changes nothing. Continue advance. 3 days into the Sol system, the Vortak fleet had found nothing but abandoned colonies and automated beacons. It was humiliating. Frathcor had expected resistance, a show of force, anything but this empty silence. They insult us by not even fighting, Frathcor snarled. Fine, we will occupy Earth directly. Land troops. Drag them from their hiding places. Let the galaxy see what happens to species that waste our time. The fleet arranged itself in battle formation, approaching Earth orbit. Standard procedure, overwhelming force, precise execution, total victory. That was when the asteroid moved. Executor. The sensor officer's voice cracked with alarm. Massive contact. Bearing 77 Mark III. Range 400,000 kilometers and closing. What? There was nothing there a moment ago. It was disguised as mining debris. The outer layer is breaking away, and Executor, it's huge. On the main display, something emerged from the rubble of the asteroid belt. It was a ship, but unlike any ship in the galactic database. No smooth curves, no elegant design. It was all angles and edges, covered in dark matte plating that drank in sensor beams. Weapons bristled from every surface. The hull bore scars and burn marks as if it had been tested in 1,000 fires, and painted across its prow in bright white letters was a single word. Ragnarok, mass 8 million tons, the sensor officer reported, voice trembling. Length 3 kilometers. Power signature unlike anything in our database. It's accelerating toward us fast. One ship? Frathcor's laugh was sharp. One primitive ship against 300, open fire. Destroy it. The Vortak fleet opened fire with plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, and energy lances. Enough firepower to destroy a moon. The beams lanced toward the human warship in brilliant streams of destruction. The Ragnarok didn't even try to dodge. It flew straight through the barrage. Shields holding. Frathcor asked. Executor, it doesn't have shields. Not energy shields anyway. The hull is absorbing impacts, but wait, return fire. The human ship's response was brutal and simple. Dozens of weapons along its spine lit up with muzzle flashes. Not energy weapons. Kinetic weapons. Railguns accelerating metal slugs to incredible velocities. The first salvo hit Vrathcor's forward screen of ships. The shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered almost no resistance to solid projectiles moving at 5% of light speed. Tungsten penetrators punched through shield emitters, through crystalline hulls, through power cores. 3 Vortak warships exploded in seconds. 7 more were crippled. Impossible, Frathcor shouted. They're using kinetic weapons. Who uses kinetic weapons? Someone who studied our shields, the tactical officer said quietly. Someone who knew energy shields are optimized against energy weapons. Before Vrathcor could respond, the Ragnarok fired again. This time missiles, hundreds of them, ejected from vertical launch tubes along the ship's flanks. They accelerated on plumes of fusion fire, moving in complex patterns that confused targeting systems. Point defense. Shoot them down. The Vortak fleet's automated defenses engaged, destroying missiles by the dozen, but there were too many. And unlike sophisticated galactic missiles with complex guidance systems, these were simple, dumb, brutal. Each warhead was a fusion bomb, powerful enough to vaporize a city. The missiles that got through detonated against Vortak hulls. Nuclear fire bloomed in the void. Electromagnetic pulses scrambled sensors. Debris clouds blocked targeting solutions. In the chaos, the Ragnarok kept advancing, kept firing, kept killing. All ships concentrate fire on that vessel, Vrathcor commanded. Ignore the missiles. Kill the ship. The fleet obeyed, turning hundreds of energy weapons toward the human warship. This time they scored direct hits. The Ragnarok's hull glowed red with heat. Armor plating melted and sloughed away. But the ship didn't slow down. It didn't stop firing. Why won't it die? Someone shouted. It's built like a fortress, the tactical officer said, horror creeping into their voice. No shields to collapse. No single weak point. Every system is redundant. It's designed to take damage and keep fighting. The Ragnarok closed to knife-fighting range, its massive hull dwarfing the elegant Vortak warships. At this distance, every shot was a killing blow. Railguns fired point-blank, punching clean through multiple ships. Missiles detonated on impact, no time to intercept. The human ship didn't maneuver like a warship. It maneuvered like a fortress that had decided to move. Vrathcor watched his fleet die and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. All ships, retreat. Quantum slip to rally point. The surviving Vortak warships began the complex calculations needed to open slip space portals. It took precious seconds. Seconds, the Ragnarok used to kill more of them. Ships that had terrorized entire species were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Executor, the human ship is pursuing. It's matching our retreat vector. That's impossible. How can it track our quantum signatures? But it could. Somehow the primitive human ship could follow them through slip space. Or it had predicted where they would go. Either option was terrifying. One by one, the Vortex ships escaped into quantum space. Behind them, the Ragnarok hung in the void, surrounded by wreckage. Its hull was scarred and burning, but it was still intact, still functional, still deadly. When the retreat was complete, Vrathkor counted the cost. 300 ships had entered Sol system. 270 had escaped. 30 ships lost to a single enemy vessel. 30 ships destroyed by primitives with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. In the command chamber, no one spoke. No one moved. They sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. Executor, the communication officer finally said, "We are receiving a transmission from Earth." "Put it through," Vrathkor said. His voice was hollow. The display showed a human female in military uniform. Her dark skin showed no emotion. Her eyes were cold as space. She sat in what was clearly the bridge of the Ragnarok, flames and sparks visible in the background. "I am Captain Sarah Okonkwo of the United Earth Stellar Ship Ragnarok," she said calmly. "You came to subjugate us. You failed. Go home. Tell your council what happened here. Tell them that Earth does not kneel. Tell them we studied you for 50 years before we announced ourselves. Tell them we built our warship specifically to kill yours. And tell them this. If any empire sends fleets against us, we will destroy them. Not because we want war, because we will not be slaves. Go home, High Executor, while you still can." The transmission ended. Vrathkor stared at the empty display for a long moment. Around him, his crew waited for orders, for guidance, for the certainty that their executor had always provided. "Set course for hegemony space," Vrathkor said finally. "Maximum speed." As the fleet fled Sol system, behind them the Ragnarok slowly turned back toward Earth. Its hull was damaged but not broken. Its weapons were depleted but not empty. And somewhere in its armored heart, its crew prepared for the next battle. The next fleet. The next empire that would come to teach humanity its place. Vrathkor knew, with terrible certainty, that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had awakened a sleeping predator. Earth was not primitive. Earth was patient. Earth was prepared. And Earth was far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. In the council chamber, an emergency session convened. The representatives of the three empires appeared, their forms flickering with agitation. News of the Vortok defeat had spread through diplomatic channels like wildfire. 30 ships, the Eternal Prime said. 30 warships lost to a single primitive vessel. "Explain this, Vrathkor." "They knew we were coming," Vrathkor said. "They prepared specifically to counter our tactics, our weapons, our strategies. Their ship was built for one purpose, to kill Vortok warships. And it succeeded." "One ship," Zusara clicked thoughtfully. Their transmission showed extensive mining operations. How many more ships might they have built? The question hung in the air like poison. "I am dispatching analysts to review the engagement data," Vrathkor said. "But I recommend we approach Earth with caution. They are not what they appeared to be." "Caution?" The Eternal Prime's energy form pulsed with disdain. "They won one battle through deception. Nothing more. The Vortok underestimated them. We will not." "Perhaps we should negotiate," Nemtoth suggested. "They have proven their capability. Perhaps there is room for negotiate with primitives who destroyed a hegemony fleet?" Zusara's mandibles clicked sharply. That would show weakness. Every subject species in the galaxy would see it. No. Earth must be dealt with. But carefully, intelligently. "The collective will handle this," Zara announced. "We will send not a subjugation fleet, but a war swarm. 1,000 ships. We will blockade their system. Cut off all resources. Destroy any ships that emerge. We will starve them until they beg for mercy." Vrathkor wanted to warn them, wanted to explain that the humans had planned this, that they had shown only one ship, one tactic, that there was something deeply wrong about a species that spent 50 years listening before speaking. But his pride would not allow it. "Let the Jin Collective learn their own lessons. Do what you will," Vrathkor said. "The hegemony will watch with interest." The session ended. The empires departed to plan their next moves. And on Earth, in the scarred and burning bridge of the Ragnarok, Captain Okonkwo allowed herself a small smile. Phase 1 complete, she said. The bait is taken. The trap is set. Now we wait for the Jinn to come to us. And if they bring 1,000 ships? Her first officer asked. Then we don't fight them with ships, Okonkwo replied. We already learned everything we need to know about the Vortak. They're predictable. The Jinn will be different, so we'll be different too. That's what humans do best. We adapt. Outside the bridge windows, Earth rotated peacefully in the void. Humanity's cradle world, protected by one scarred warship, and the determination of a species that had fought itself for thousands of years before ever meeting another civilization. The empires were about to learn a hard truth. The most dangerous enemy is not the strongest. It is the one that refuses to fight fair. Hive Queen Zasara stood in her throne chamber, surrounded by thousands of her lesser selves. Each drone was an extension of her consciousness, a limb that thought and moved as she commanded. The Jinn Collective operated as a single vast organism, and Zasara was its brain. The Vortak failed because they were arrogant. She clicked to her war coordinators. They sent a subjugation fleet to a prepared enemy. They fought like this was a simple conquest. But war is more than single battles. War is about resources, logistics, and patience. These are things the Collective understands. On the holographic display, the Sol system rotated slowly. Intelligence reports showed one human warship, the Ragnarok, heavily damaged and undergoing repairs in Earth orbit. No other major vessels detected. The extensive mining operations had apparently produced only this one ship. We will not make the Vortak's mistake, Zasara continued. We will send 1,000 warships. We will establish blockade positions at every jump point leading to Sol. We will mine every approach. We will ensure nothing enters or leaves that system. Then we will wait. Humans need resources. They need trade. They need supplies. Eventually, they will have no choice but to surrender. The war coordinators chittered their approval. This was sound strategy. The Collective had crushed rebellions using exactly these tactics for millennia. Overwhelming force applied with precision and patience. Begin the deployment, Zasara commanded. Send the first wave to establish the blockade. We move in 10 days. What Zasara did not know was that Earth had been listening. Human intelligence had cracked Jinn communication protocols years ago. Every order, every deployment schedule, every ship position was transmitted directly to Earth's Defense Command. Admiral James Keita studied the incoming data from his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Keita was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. He had been planning this war for 30 years, running simulations, building strategies, preparing for the day when Earth would have to fight the galaxy. The Jinn are moving exactly as predicted, he said to his staff. They think in patterns. Hive minds are efficient but predictable. They're sending ships to blockade us. How many ships do we actually have operational? Asked Colonel Park, his intelligence officer. 8, counting the Ragnarok, which is still in repairs. Keita smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. But we're not going to fight them in Sol. We're going to take the war to them. Sir, they're sending 1,000 ships. We have 8, which is why we're not fighting ship-to-ship battles, Keita replied. We studied the Jinn for 50 years. We know how they think. We know how they operate. And we know their weakness. What weakness, sir? Unity, Keita said. The Collective operates as one mind. But that unity requires constant communication between the Hive Queen and her drones. Disrupt that communication, and the Collective fragments. The secondary hives start making their own decisions. And when hive minds start disagreeing with each other, they fall apart. The plan was audacious. Instead of defending Sol, Earth's 8 warships would split up and attack Jinn space simultaneously. They would target communication relays, supply depots, and isolated colonies. They would not hold territory. They would not fight fair battles. They would simply appear, destroy something important, and disappear before the Collective could respond. We're going to wage asymmetric warfare, Keita explained. The Collective expects conventional battles, fleet actions, territory control. Instead, we're going to terrify them, make them afraid. Make them doubt their queen's ability to protect them, and when they start doubting, they start thinking for themselves. 10 days later, the Jinn fleet arrived at the edge of Sol system. 1,000 warships arranged in perfect geometric formations. Each ship was a masterpiece of biological engineering, grown rather than built. Its hull covered in chitinous armor and bristling with bioplasma weapons. The fleet's commander, War Coordinator Thrax, was a secondary node of Zusara's consciousness. He could feel the Hive Queen's thoughts in his mind, guiding him, directing him. Together they would crush the human resistance. Deploy blockade formations, Thrax commanded. Mine all approach vectors. Establish surveillance satellites. Nothing enters or leaves Sol. The fleet spread out across the system's edge, creating an impenetrable wall of ships and weapons. It was a textbook blockade. Perfect. Efficient. Exactly what Jin doctrine required. That same day, on the other side of collective space, the UESS Phantom appeared in orbit above a minor Jin colony world. The Phantom was smaller than the Ragnarok, built for speed and stealth. Its hull was covered in sensor-absorbing materials that made it nearly invisible. Without warning, the Phantom fired a spread of missiles at the colony's orbital communication array. The structure exploded in a flash of light. Then, before the colony's defense fleet could even scramble, the Phantom vanished into slip space. The attack lasted less than 5 minutes. No colony drones were killed, but the colony was now cut off from the Hive Queen's consciousness. For the first time in their existence, those drones were alone with their own thoughts. 6 hours later, another human warship appeared in a different Jin system. This one attacked a supply depot, destroying food stores meant for the blockade fleet. Again, the attack was over before defenders arrived. Then another attack. And another. And another. Over the next 30 days, human warships appeared across Jin space like ghosts. They never fought major battles. They never stayed long enough to be trapped. They struck at infrastructure, at communications, at supplies. Each attack was surgical, precise, and devastating to collective logistics. In her throne chamber, Zusara felt the growing chaos through her connection to the Hive. Colonies were reporting attacks. Secondary hives were requesting protection. The blockade fleet at Sol was complaining about supply shortages. And through it all, a creeping sense of something she had never felt before. Uncertainty. How many human ships? She demanded. Reports vary, Hive Queen, a coordinator replied. Some colonies report multiple ships attacking simultaneously. Others report single ships. We estimate between 5 and 10 vessels. 10 ships. 10 ships are crippling our logistics across 17 systems. Sara's mandibles clicked with agitation. This is impossible. How are they coordinating? How are they moving so quickly? They appear to have studied our patterns, Hive Queen. They know where our communication relays are positioned. They know our supply routes. They strike at our weak points and disappear. Then we will adapt. Send hunter-killer squadrons. Find these ships and destroy them. The collective dispatched specialized hunter fleets to track down the human raiders. But the humans seemed to know when hunters were coming. They would go silent for days, then appear in completely different sectors. It was as if they could read the collective's mind, which in a way they could. Human intelligence continued to monitor Jin communications, staying one step ahead of every countermeasure. The psychological impact was worse than the physical damage. Jin drones began to fear the humans. Stories spread through the hive of ghost ships that appeared without warning and disappeared without trace, of humans who fought without honor, who struck at the defenseless, who ignored every rule of civilized warfare. And in the colonies that had lost contact with Zusara, something dangerous began to happen. The drones started thinking independently, started making decisions without consulting the Hive Queen, started questioning whether the collective strategy was working. 2 months into the campaign, a secondary hive on the colony world of Jin 7 did the unthinkable. They contacted the human ship that had attacked them. We wish to negotiate, the secondary queen transmitted. The Hive Queen's war has brought nothing but suffering to our colony. We propose a local ceasefire. We will not attack human ships. In exchange, you will not attack our infrastructure. This war is not our war. The message reached Admiral Kata on Earth. He read it 3 times, hardly believing what he was seeing. One of the secondary hives is breaking away from the collective, Colonel Park said, his voice awed. Sir, I think we're watching the Jin collective fracture in real time. Accept their offer, Kata ordered. And make sure every other Jin colony knows about it. Let them see that independence is possible. Let them see that their Hive Queen cannot protect them. The news spread through collective space like a virus. If one secondary hive could make peace with the humans, why couldn't others? If the Hive Queen's strategy was failing, why should they continue to obey? The psychological bonds that held the collective together began to weaken. Sarah felt it happening and was powerless to stop it. She sent fleets to reinforce wavering colonies. She broadcast commands demanding unity. She promised victory was close. But the drones had tasted fear, and fear was poison to a hive mind. 3 months into the campaign, the collective held a crisis council. Secondary queens from across Jin space appeared as holographic projections, something that rarely happened. The collective preferred direct mental connection, but too many colonies had lost their communication arrays. The humans have destroyed 17 major supply depots, one queen reported. Our blockade fleet at Sol is running low on provisions. The humans have crippled communication arrays in 23 systems, another added. Coordination is breaking down. 47 colonies have lost contact with the primary hive, a third queen said. We do not know if they are still loyal. Zara listened to the reports and felt the weight of command pressing down on her. The Vortak had warned her in their way. They had said the humans were prepared. But she had not listened. She had believed the collective strength would be enough. Recall the blockade fleet from Sol, she finally ordered. We must prioritize defending our own space. The humans have made it clear they will not be contained. We must adapt our strategy. But Hive Queen, Thrax protested, if we lift the blockade, we admit defeat. Every species in the galaxy will see it. If we continue this war, the collective will tear itself apart, Zara replied. I have been thinking like a hive. The humans have been thinking like humans. They do not care about territory or honor or conventional victory. They care only about survival, and they have shown they will do whatever necessary to achieve it. The blockade fleet began its withdrawal from Sol system. As the Jin ships departed, they passed through clouds of debris from ships destroyed by mines they had laid themselves. The irony was not lost on Thrax. The humans never even tried to break through our blockade, he observed. They simply ignored it and attacked us everywhere else. We prepared for the battle they did not fight. On Earth, Admiral Kata watched the Jin fleet depart and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The gambit had worked. 8 ships against 1,000, and Earth had won by simply refusing to play the enemy's game. Status of our warships? He asked. All 8 operational and returning to Sol, Colonel Park reported. Casualties minimal. We lost 2 ships to Jin hunter-killers, but the crews evacuated successfully. Damage to collective infrastructure, extensive. Political damage to the collective, catastrophic. Intelligence reports indicate at least 70 secondary hives are now operating independently of Zasara's direct control. And the Luminarchs? Kata asked. How have they reacted to all this? They're watching, evaluating. I expect they'll move soon. And when they do, they won't underestimate us like the others did. Kata nodded. The Luminarchs were the final test. The oldest empire. The most powerful. They would not fall for the same tricks that defeated the Vortak and the Jin. But Earth had tricks the Luminarchs had never seen. Tricks that Earth had been saving for exactly this moment. In her throne chamber, Zasara felt the collective continuing to fragment. Secondary hives making their own treaties with humans. Colonies refusing orders. The unity that had existed for tens of thousands of years was crumbling. Perhaps, she clicked softly to herself. Unity was our weakness all along. And the humans saw what we could not. That diversity and independence can be stronger than conformity and control. It was a bitter lesson, but it was one the Jin collective would have to learn if they wanted to survive in a galaxy where Earth had proven that even the greatest empires could be brought low by a single species that refused to surrender. The war for galactic supremacy had entered its 3rd phase. 2 empires had fallen to humanity's cunning and determination. 1 empire remained, and the Luminarchs were preparing to show Earth what true power looked like. The Eternal Prime existed in a state beyond physical form. Its consciousness stretched across light years, inhabiting the electromagnetic fields of stellar nebulas and the quantum foam of reality itself. The Luminarchs had transcended flesh millions of years ago, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. They were the oldest civilization in the known galaxy, and they had watched empires rise and fall like mayflies. Now, for the first time in eons, the Eternal Prime felt something approaching concern. The Vortak were defeated through preparation, the Eternal Prime said to its council of lesser Luminarchs. The Jin were defeated through psychology. Both empires underestimated the humans and paid the price. We will not make the same mistake. The council convened in a nebula that the Luminarchs had shaped into a meeting chamber. Streams of energy that might have been thoughts or might have been entire consciousnesses flowed between them. The humans are clever, one Luminarch observed. They studied us for decades before revealing themselves. They built weapons specifically to counter Vortex shields and Jin unity. But what can they build to counter us? We are not matter. We are not bound by physical laws as they understand them. How do you fight beings of pure energy with kinetic weapons? You do not, the Eternal Prime agreed. Which is why the humans must be eliminated now, before they develop technologies that could threaten us. The Vortak and Zin failed because they sought subjugation. We will not subjugate. We will exterminate. Completely. Totally. Without mercy or hesitation. The decision was made. For the first time in a million years, the Luminarchs would wage a war of annihilation. They would not send a fleet. They would send an extinction armada. Weapons that could collapse stars. Technologies that could tear holes in space-time. Machines that could unmake matter at the quantum level. The Eternal Prime gathered its power and began the great working. Across Luminarch space, ancient weapons were awakened. Star killers that had not been used since the great wars of the deep past. Reality anchors that could prevent slip space travel. Dimensional breaches that could erase targets from existence itself. It would take time to deploy such weapons. 3 months, perhaps 4. But when they were ready, nothing in Sol system would survive. Not Earth, not its colonies, not even the memory of human existence. The Luminarchs would erase humanity so completely that future civilizations would never know they had existed. On Earth, deep in the Defense Command bunker, Admiral Kata received the intelligence report with grim acceptance. The Luminarchs are mobilizing their extinction armada, Colonel Park said. Our best estimates give us 3 to 4 months before they're ready to strike. Sir, we can't fight this. Not with warships. Not with any conventional military force. They're going to unmake our entire system. I know, Kata replied calmly, which is why we're not going to fight them conventionally. We're going to threaten them with something they value more than victory. What could beings of pure energy possibly value, sir? Existence, Kata said. The Luminarchs have survived for millions of years. They're not willing to sacrifice that survival, not even to destroy us. He called up a holographic display of the galaxy. Surrounding Luminarch space, thousands of light years away, small markers appeared. Each marker represented something the Luminarchs had not detected. For 50 years, while we studied their transmissions, we also studied their territory. We mapped their energy flows, their consciousness networks, their dimensional anchoring points, and we've been building something they don't know about, something we've hidden in deep space beyond their sensor range. The Alcubierre array, Colonel Park breathed. It's real? I thought that was just a theoretical project. It was theoretical, Kata confirmed, until 30 years ago, when we figured out how to actually build it. We've been placing the gates ever since, using stealth ships and decades of careful positioning. The array surrounds all of Luminarch space, 73 warp gates, each powerful enough to tear a hole in spacetime, and if activated simultaneously, they would create a cascade effect, Park finished, understanding dawning. The dimensional barriers around Luminarch space would collapse. They'd be cut off from real space forever, trapped in their own pocket dimension. Exactly. We can't kill the Luminarchs, but we can make them wish we could. We can trap them in a prison of their own making, isolated from the universe for eternity, and the trigger for the array is on Earth. If they destroy us, the array activates automatically. Mutually assured destruction. Sir, this is insane. We're threatening to cut off an entire region of space. There are other species in Luminarch territory, innocent civilizations that will die anyway if we don't stop the Luminarchs, Kata interrupted. I know it's a terrible choice, but it's the only choice we have. The Luminarchs think we're primitive, think we're weak. We need to show them that even primitives can be dangerous when cornered. The plan moved forward. While the Luminarchs prepared their extinction armada, Earth prepared its final gambit. Engineers checked the Alcubierre gates one by one, ensuring each was operational. Physicists ran calculations confirming the cascade would work, and ambassadors prepared to deliver humanity's ultimatum. 3 months passed. The extinction armada assembled at the edge of Luminarch space, a collection of weapons so terrible that merely existing near them warped reality. Star killers hummed with barely contained power. Reality anchors created dead zones where natural laws broke down. Dimensional breaches opened like wounds in space. The Eternal Prime surveyed its instruments of destruction with satisfaction. The humans had no idea what was coming. They were still hiding behind their one damaged warship and their clever tactics. Against the Armada, such things meant nothing. Begin the advance, the Eternal Prime commanded. Proceed to Sol system. Upon arrival, activate all weapons simultaneously. Leave nothing behind. The Armada began to move, a wave of annihilation flowing through space toward Earth. It would take 7 days to reach Sol. 7 days until humanity ceased to exist. On the third day, the Eternal Prime received an unexpected transmission. It came on all frequencies, using every form of communication known to galactic civilization. The message was simple, a set of spatial coordinates and a single sentence. Look here, then we need to talk. Curious despite itself, the Eternal Prime directed its awareness to the coordinates. They surrounded Luminarch space in a spherical shell, thousands of light years in diameter. At first the Prime detected nothing. Then as its sensors adjusted, it saw them. 73 structures, each one massive and humming with power. They were gates of some kind, built using principles the Luminarchs recognized as variations of slipspace technology. But these gates weren't designed for travel. They were designed for something else. Something catastrophic. What are these? The Prime demanded, broadcasting directly to Earth. Ambassador Chen Wei appeared on the transmission, older now than he had been in the first contact message years ago. But his eyes held the same steel determination. Those are Alcubierre gates, Chen explained calmly. Each one is a warp drive powerful enough to tear a hole in space-time. We've positioned them around your entire territory. If all 73 activate simultaneously, they will create a cascade effect. The dimensional boundaries around your space will collapse. You will be cut off from real space permanently, trapped in a pocket dimension forever. The Eternal Prime felt something it had not felt in millions of years. Genuine fear. You would doom yourselves and countless other species just to threaten us? No, Chen replied. We would doom you to save ourselves, but we'd prefer not to. This is a deterrent, not a weapon we want to use. Call off your extinction armada. Negotiate with us. Or activate your weapons and we'll activate ours. Your choice. This is insane, the Eternal Prime said. You cannot be serious. You would destroy an entire region of space, kill billions of beings just to stop us? We would, Chen said without hesitation. Because if we don't, you'll kill us anyway. You're not offering subjugation. You're offering extinction. So we respond with the only thing that might make you reconsider. We're too young to have anything to lose, Eternal Prime. But you've existed for millions of years. Are you willing to end that existence now? Are you willing to be cut off from the universe forever? Just to destroy one young species? The transmission ended. The Eternal Prime was left alone with an impossible choice. The Council convened an emergency session. Lesser Luminarchs appeared as streams of agitated energy, their usual calm completely shattered. This is blackmail, one said. We cannot allow primitives to threaten us. They are not bluffing, another countered. Our analysis confirms the gates are real and functional. If activated, they would trap us exactly as the human described. So we do nothing. We allow them to escape consequence for defying us? What is the alternative? The Eternal Prime asked. We destroy them and they destroy us. Everyone loses. Perhaps, a quiet Luminarch suggested. That is exactly the point. The humans have not been trying to defeat us. They have been trying to survive. And they have shown they will do whatever necessary to achieve that survival, even if it means mutual annihilation. The Eternal Prime considered this. The humans were young, yes. Primitive, certainly. But they had defeated two great empires through cunning and determination. They had built weapons in secret for decades. They had planned for scenarios no one thought possible. They were dangerous precisely because they had so little to lose. Contact the human ambassador, the Prime finally commanded. We will negotiate. 2 days later, Chen Wei appeared before the Luminarch Council, not as a hologram but in person, wearing a simple pressure suit aboard a small shuttle. He floated in the energy-rich environment of the Luminarch Nebula, surrounded by beings that could snuff out his existence with a thought. You have our attention, Ambassador, the Eternal Prime said. Speak. Humanity does not seek war with the Luminarchs, Chen began. We never did. When we sent our first message to the Galactic Council, we sought friendship and knowledge. We were met with subjugation fleets and extinction armadas, so we defended ourselves the only way we could, through preparation, cunning, and the willingness to do terrible things if necessary. You speak as if you are the victims, the Prime said coldly. You destroyed Vortac ships. You fractured the Xin Collective. You threaten us with dimensional isolation. These are not the actions of victims. No, Chen agreed. They're the actions of survivors. The Vortac came to enslave us. The Xin came to starve us. You came to erase us. What were we supposed to do, submit? Accept extinction quietly? We're young, Eternal Prime, but we're not stupid. And we're not weak. What do you want, human? Peace, Chen said simply. Let us exist. Stop sending fleets to conquer or destroy us. We will not expand into your territory. We will not threaten your empire. We simply want to live in our small corner of the galaxy without interference. And if we refuse, if we accept dimensional isolation rather than negotiate with primitives, then everyone loses, Chen replied. You'll be trapped forever. We'll be destroyed. And the galaxy will see that even the mighty Luminarchs can be defeated by a species young enough to be insane. Is your pride worth that price? The council deliberated in streams of energy too fast for Chen to follow. Finally, the Eternal Prime spoke. You have made your point, Ambassador. Humanity has proven it cannot be conquered without unacceptable cost. Very well. We will halt the Extinction Armada. We will withdraw to our space. And we will not interfere with Sol system. And the gates? Chen asked. Will remain where they are, the Prime said. As will your warships. We will exist in a state of deterrence. Neither side attacking because both sides have too much to lose. It is not peace. But it is not war. Perhaps that is the best we can hope for. Chen nodded slowly. Perhaps it is, but it's a start. As the ambassador's shuttle departed the nebula, the Eternal Prime felt something like respect for the young species. They had faced 3 great empires and survived through cleverness and audacity. They had built weapons of terrible power and used them as threats rather than tools of conquest. They were dangerous, yes, but they were also rational, reasonable, capable of restraint. Perhaps, the Prime said to its council, we have been the primitives all along. We forgot what it means to face an enemy that fights not for glory or territory, but for simple survival. The humans remembered, and they taught us the lesson. On Earth, Admiral Kata watched the Luminarch Armada turn back toward its home space. The crisis was over. Humanity had survived the ultimate test. They had faced the galaxy's mightiest empire and forced it to blink. Sir? Colonel Park said quietly. What do we do now? The gates are active. The warships are operational. We have the power to destroy empires. How do we make sure we don't become the very thing we fought against? By remembering why we built these weapons, Keita replied. Not for conquest. Not for glory. For survival. As long as we remember that, we'll be fine. The moment we forget, that's when we become the villains. Outside the bunker, Earth continued its slow rotation. Humanity's home world, protected now not by fleets or shields, but by the promise of mutual destruction. It was not the future they had hoped for when they first reached for the stars, but it was a future where they would survive. And sometimes survival was the greatest victory of all. 5 years had passed since the Luminarch Armada turned back from Earth. 5 years since humanity had forced the galaxy's greatest empires to recognize them not as primitives to be conquered, but as equals to be respected. The Galactic Council Chamber, that ancient sphere of crystal and light, had witnessed many changes in that time. Today it would witness the greatest change of all. Council Arbiter Nemtoth floated at the center of the chamber, as it had for countless millennia. But the ancient being felt something unfamiliar stirring in its consciousness. Hope. The 3 great empires had arrived for the emergency session, but this time they were not alone. Representatives from dozens of smaller species filled the observer galleries, species that had never been permitted to speak before the council. And at the triangular table, a 4th seat had been added. Ambassador Chen Wei sat in that 4th seat, older now, his hair completely gray. But his eyes were as sharp as ever. He wore a simple Earth uniform, no weapons, no guards. He needed none. Everyone present knew what would happen if anything happened to Earth's representative. High Executive Wrathcore was the first to speak. His crystalline form had lost some of its bright arrogance over the years. The Vortac hegemony had been humbled, and it showed. The hegemony has completed its review of subjugated species status, Wrathcore announced. As agreed in the preliminary, Negotiations, we are granting independence to 73 species that were previously held under protectorate status. We are withdrawing occupation forces from their worlds. We are releasing them. The words clearly pained him, but he spoke them anyway. Around the chamber, whispers of astonishment rippled through the observer galleries. The Vortak, granting independence? It was unthinkable. It was unprecedented. The collective has also completed its reforms. Hive Queen Zasara clicked. She looked different now, smaller somehow. The great hive mind had fragmented, and she ruled a much reduced empire. Secondary hives have been granted autonomy. 41 hives have chosen to operate independently. We have recognized their sovereignty. The age of forced unity is over. The collective will continue, but as a voluntary association rather than a forced collective. The Luminarchs have withdrawn all reality anchors and dimensional barriers from free space, the Eternal Prime added. Its energy form seemed less overwhelming than before, as if it had pulled back from the physical universe somewhat. We acknowledge that our presence was oppressive to developing species. We will maintain minimal interaction with the physical realm except where invited. The age of our dominance is concluded. Chen Wei listened to each declaration and nodded slowly. This was what humanity had fought for. Not conquest, not revenge. Simply the right for all species to exist without living under the shadow of empires. Earth acknowledges these reforms, Chen said formally. And in recognition of the progress made, we are willing to take the next step in our proposal, the establishment of the new Galactic Compact. He activated a holographic display showing the terms humanity had drafted. It was not a complicated document. The language was simple, clear, and direct. That simplicity was deliberate. No room for loopholes, no space for interpretation. The terms are straightforward, Chen continued. First, no species may wage wars of conquest or subjugation. Defensive wars are permitted. Border disputes will be arbitrated by neutral parties. Second, younger species will be granted protectorate status, not to control them, but to shield them from exploitation while they develop. Third, the Council will be expanded to include representatives from all spacefaring species, not just the great powers. Fourth, enforcement of these terms will be collective, with Earth contributing its defensive capabilities as part of a mutual defense pact. And the gates? Vrathkor asked quietly. The Alcubierre array that surrounds Luminarch space? What becomes of that? It remains operational, Chen said, as does our fleet. As do all weapons developed during the conflict. But they remain as deterrents, not as tools of conquest. Earth will not disarm, but we will not expand. We will maintain our strength, but we will use it only in defense of the compact. You would have us live under the threat of your weapons forever? The Eternal Prime asked. No, Chen replied. I would have us all live under the threat of each other's weapons. Mutual deterrence, the knowledge that war between great powers would be catastrophic for everyone involved. It worked on Earth for centuries. It can work in the galaxy as well. This is not peace, Sarah observed. This is a Cold War. It's cold peace, Chen corrected, which is better than hot war. Perhaps future generations will build true peace. But for now, this is what we can achieve. A galaxy where no one dares to conquer because everyone has too much to lose. Nemtoth spoke for the first time. I have observed this council for longer than most civilizations have existed. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen wars that consumed galaxies, and I have waited for someone to break the cycle of dominance and subjugation. Today, that cycle breaks. Today, we begin something new. It may not be perfect, but it is progress. The vote was called. One by one, the great empires agreed to the new Galactic Compact. Not enthusiastically, not happily, but with the understanding that the alternative was worse. The age of empires had not ended, but the age of unchecked imperial power had. After the formal session concluded, Chen Wei stood on an observation deck looking out at the stars. Vrathkor approached, his crystalline form reflecting the distant light of galaxies. Do you know what you have done? the Vortak executor asked. His tone was not hostile, just curious. I'm not sure, Chen admitted. We tried to survive. Everything else just happened. You destroyed the old order, Vrathkor said. The hegemony had conquered for 200,000 years. We believed in our superiority. We believed in our right to rule. Then you appeared, with your primitive kinetic weapons and your refusal to be conquered, and you showed us that superiority is an illusion, that any species, no matter how advanced, can be defeated by one that simply refuses to surrender. Is that a complaint? Chen asked. No, Vrathkor said, and there was something like respect in his voice. It is an observation, and perhaps gratitude. We were stagnant, ancient, arrogant. You forced us to change, to adapt, to remember that the universe does not care about our sense of superiority. Perhaps we needed that lesson. He departed, leaving Chen alone with his thoughts. Soon after, Zara approached, her insectoid form clicking softly in the dim light. The collective is not what it was, she said. We have lost much of our unity. Many hives now operate independently. Some humans would call this a victory. Do you? Chen asked. I call it evolution, Sara replied. We were one mind because we feared being many minds. You showed us that strength does not require uniformity, that diversity can be powerful. My species will never be the same, but perhaps that is not a bad thing. Finally, the Eternal Prime appeared, its energy form shimmering in the observation deck's contained atmosphere. You are an anomaly, the Prime said. A young species that defeated 3 empires through cunning, determination, and the willingness to threaten mutual destruction. You should not have survived. By all logical analysis, you should have been crushed. But we weren't, Chen said. No, you were not. Do you know why? Because we had nothing to lose? Because you remembered something we forgot, the Prime said. That survival is not about being the strongest or the oldest or the most advanced. Survival is about adaptation, about doing whatever is necessary, about refusing to accept defeat even when defeat seems inevitable. We became so powerful that we forgot what it means to fight for existence. You never forgot. That made you more dangerous than any weapon. The 3 representatives departed, leaving Chen Wei alone under the stars. He thought about Earth, about the journey humanity had taken from a small blue world to a galactic power. They had come so far, but they had stayed true to what made them human: adaptability, determination, and the refusal to kneel. 50 years later, the galaxy was transformed. The reforms had taken root. Young species developed without fear of immediate subjugation. The Vortak hegemony had become a confederation of willing allies rather than a forced empire. The Jin collective had evolved into dozens of independent hives that cooperated but did not merge. The Luminarchs had retreated further into their nebulas, content to observe rather than dominate. And humanity? Humanity remained vigilant. The UESS Ragnarok hung in Earth orbit, its scarred hull preserved as a museum ship. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the vessel that had defeated a Vortak subjugation fleet. They walked its corridors, saw the burned bulkheads and patched armor, and read the plaques that explained each battle. Captain Sarah Okonkwo, retired now and ancient by human standards, sometimes gave tours to young officers from a dozen species. This ship was never meant to be beautiful, she would tell them. It was meant to survive, to fight, to protect Earth when no one else would. We built it in secret, knowing we would probably only get one chance to prove we couldn't be conquered. We had to make that one chance count. Why did you fight? A young Vortak officer asked once. You could have accepted protectorate status. Many species did. Why risk extinction? Because being alive and being free are not the same thing, Okonkwo replied. We chose to risk extinction rather than accept subjugation. Some might call that foolish. We called it human. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Chen Wei had been replaced by his successor, Ambassador Maria Santos. She was younger, born after the wars, part of the generation that had only known the new order. But she carried the same determination her predecessor had shown. Today she stood before the council to address a new crisis. A young species on the galactic rim had just developed faster than light communication. They had sent a message requesting contact with galactic civilization. I propose, Santos said, that we respond with a message of welcome, not demands, not threats. Welcome. We should send representatives from multiple species to greet them, to offer knowledge, friendship, and protection, to show them that the galaxy has changed, that young species are no longer prey, and if they prove hostile, Frathcor's successor asked. Then we will deal with that when it happens, Santos replied. But we will not assume hostility. We will not prepare for war before we have even said hello. That was the old way. This is the new way. The proposal passed unanimously. The response message was carefully crafted by representatives from Earth, the Vortak, the Jinn, and the Luminarchs working together. It spoke of peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. It warned of dangers but also promised support. It was everything humanity's first message had hoped to receive. On Earth, Admiral Keita, now ancient and confined to a wheelchair, watched the message being sent with satisfaction. Colonel Park, also elderly now, sat beside him. Do you think we did the right thing? Park asked. All the bloodshed, all the terror we inflicted on the Jinn, the threats we made to the Luminarchs. Was it worth it? I think, Keita said slowly, that we did what we had to do. The galaxy was not fair when we entered it. The strong ruled the weak without mercy. We changed that, not because we wanted to conquer, but because we wanted to survive. And in surviving, we created something better. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than what came before. And if humanity becomes what we fought against, if we become the empire that oppresses others, then someone else will do to us what we did to the Vortak and the Jinn, Keita said. That is the nature of power. It must be constantly challenged, constantly checked, or it becomes tyranny. We built a system of mutual deterrence not just to protect Earth, but to protect the galaxy from Earth. The gates that surround Luminarch space could just as easily surround Sol. And if we ever forget that, someone will remind us. On the observation deck of the council chamber, Nemtoth floated alone as it had for millions of years. But for the first time in longer than it could remember, the ancient arbiter felt something like contentment. The cycle had been broken. Not perfectly, not permanently, but for now the galaxy was at peace. Thank you, Nemtoth whispered to the stars, thinking of the small species from Earth that had done what ancient empires could not. Thank you for remembering what we forgot, that even the mighty can fall, and that even the young can teach the old. Far away on a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, children played in parks and schools. They learned about the wars their grandparents had fought, about the empires that had threatened Earth, about the determination that had saved humanity. But they also learned about responsibility, about the danger of power without restraint, about the importance of defending freedom for all species, not just their own. One child asked her teacher, "Why do we keep the warships if we're at peace?" The teacher smiled. Because peace without strength is just a pause before conquest. We keep our strength so that no one forgets what happens when empires forget to respect their neighbors. We keep our strength so that younger species never have to face what we faced. We are the shield now, and shields must remain strong even when not being struck. The child nodded, understanding in her own way, and above her, invisible in the daylight sky, satellites maintained their endless watch. The Alcubierre gates remained powered and ready. The warships remained operational, and humanity remained vigilant. Not because they wanted war, but because they remembered what had happened when they were weak and alone. They remembered the empires that had come to conquer them. They remembered the terror and the determination and the refusal to surrender, and they would never forget. The galaxy had changed because humanity refused to kneel. It would stay changed because humanity refused to sleep. The age of empires had ended not with a bang but with a choice: adapt or be destroyed. The empires had chosen adaptation, and in doing so, they had created a galaxy where even the smallest species could look at the stars and dream of peace rather than conquest. It was not perfect, but it was better, and better was enough.
The red dust of Mars swirled outside the observatory dome as Jack Reed rubbed his tired eyes. 3 nights of scanning the same sector of space had left him exhausted, but something kept nagging at his instincts. The anomaly had appeared again. Just a flicker, but definitely there. "Linda, are you seeing this?" Jack called over to his colleague. Dr. Linda Moore looked up from her console and adjusted her glasses. "I've been tracking it for the past hour. It's not natural. The pattern is too regular." The Mars Colony Observatory wasn't the most advanced facility in the solar system, but its position made it ideal for deep space observation. Established 15 years ago as humanity's first permanent off-Earth settlement, Mars Colony had grown from a research outpost to a thriving community of nearly 5,000 people. "I'm running it through the pattern recognition software again," Linda said, her fingers moving quickly across the holographic interface. "Whatever it is, it's getting closer." Jack stood up and stretched. Through the dome's transparent ceiling, he could see Earth, a blue jewel hanging in the black vastness. Sometimes he missed the oceans and forests of his home planet, but Mars had its own stark beauty. "Send the data to Earth Defense," he said. "This might be nothing, but better safe than sorry." Linda nodded and began the transmission. The Mars-Earth communication delay was only 8 minutes today. Not bad. They'd have a response soon. But they didn't need to wait for Earth's reply. Within minutes, their equipment detected something new. A powerful burst of energy, unlike anything they'd seen before. The observatory systems automatically switched to high alert. "Jack, look at this." Linda's voice cracked with urgency. On the main screen, multiple objects had appeared at the edge of their sensor range. They were moving fast, impossibly fast, and they were heading directly toward the solar system. "Those aren't asteroids," Jack said quietly. "Those are ships." Commander Ben Wilson was in the middle of a routine inspection aboard the UDF Sentinel, Earth's newest defense vessel, when the alert came through. "Sir, priority message from Mars Observatory," his communications officer reported. Wilson moved quickly to the command center. "Put it on screen." The message was brief but clear. Unknown objects approaching the solar system at high speed, exhibiting signs of artificial propulsion. First contact protocol was now in effect. "Alert Earth Command. Get me Admiral Grant," Wilson ordered, "and set course for Mars. We'll be the first line of defense if needed." As the Sentinel changed course, Wilson couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and dread. Humanity had been scanning the stars for signs of intelligent life for centuries. Now it seemed they had found it, or rather, it had found them. On Earth, Admiral Thomas Grant stood before the United Defense Force Council, his face grim. "Ladies and gentlemen, as of 600 hours Mars Standard Time, we have confirmed the presence of non-human vessels entering our solar system," he said. "We are now at first contact status." The council chamber erupted in murmurs and exclamations. Grant raised his hand for silence. "We don't know their intentions yet. We've attempted communication on all frequencies, but so far, no response." Council President Maria Rogers leaned forward. "What's their trajectory?" "Initially toward Mars, but they've changed course multiple times. Some appear to be heading toward our outer mining operations near Jupiter and Saturn. Others are moving toward Neptune." Grant pointed to the holographic display showing the solar system and the incoming vessels marked in red. "How many ships are we talking about?" asked Defense Minister Park. "We've identified 27 distinct vessels so far, varying in size. Our scans suggest they're heavily armed." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "We need to activate the full fleet," Grant continued, "and evacuate the smaller outposts if possible." President Rogers nodded. "Approved. But maintain the first contact protocol. No aggressive actions unless they fire first." 3 days passed with no direct contact from the alien vessels. They continued their methodical approach through the outer solar system, seemingly analyzing everything in their path. Earth's outgoing messages remained unanswered. Then disaster struck. "Admiral Grant, We've lost contact with Research Station Galileo near Europa. The young officer's voice was strained. Grant rushed to the command center. What happened? We're not sure, sir. They were transmitting normally, then reported an unknown ship approaching. And then, nothing. Grant's jaw tightened. Show me the last transmission. The screen flickered to life, showing the face of Dr. Alex Turner, the station's director. His expression was one of confusion, not fear. This is Research Station Galileo. We have visual contact with an unidentified vessel. It doesn't match any known human designs. We're trying to establish communication, but the image suddenly filled with static, then went black. That was 12 minutes ago, sir, the officer said quietly. Grant turned to his communications chief. Contact all outer system stations. Full evacuation, effective immediately. And get me the Sentinel. On Mars, Jack and Linda had barely slept since their discovery. They were now part of an emergency response team, coordinating with Earth defense. Another transport has gone missing. Linda reported, her face pale. That's the third one in 2 days. Jack studied the tactical display. They're avoiding our military vessels but targeting civilian operations, research stations, mining outposts, medical transports, anything that looks vulnerable. But why? If they have the technology for interstellar travel, why pick on our smallest facilities? The answer came sooner than they expected. A partial transmission was received from a damaged transport ship that had managed to escape. They call themselves the Voran Empire. They said this is how they test new species. They target the weakest first to see if we're worthy of their attention. If we can't protect our vulnerable, they consider us prey. Jack and Linda exchanged horrified looks. We need to get this to Admiral Grant now, Jack said. The first clear images of the Voran ships arrived that evening. They were sleek, predatory designs with forward-sweeping angles that reminded Jack of Earth's ancient naval destroyers. Their hulls were dark metallic, absorbing rather than reflecting light, perfect for stealth approaches. Admiral Grant's face appeared on their communication screen, his expression grave. We've confirmed attacks on 7 facilities in the outer system, he said. No survivors found yet. The Vorans are sending us a message with these attacks. They're testing us, Linda said, seeing how we respond when our weakest are threatened. Grant nodded. Exactly. And they've completely misunderstood humanity. They think targeting the vulnerable demonstrates our weakness. His eyes hardened. They're about to learn it's our greatest strength. The Admiral outlined the initial defensive plan. Earth's fleet was mobilizing, with priority given to evacuating remaining civilian operations in the outer system. Meanwhile, combat vessels were moving into position. The Sentinel will reach Mars in 6 hours, Grant informed them. You two will be evacuated with the rest of the non-essential personnel. Jack stepped forward. Sir, with respect, we know these readings better than anyone. We might spot something others miss. Grant considered this, then nodded. Very well. Report to Commander Wilson when he arrives. But be ready to leave at a moment's notice. After the transmission ended, Jack and Linda returned to their monitoring stations. Outside, the Martian sunset painted the landscape in shades of red and gold. Somewhere beyond that peaceful view, an alien force was systematically targeting human outposts, starting with the most vulnerable. They picked the wrong species to test, Jack said quietly. Linda nodded, her expression resolute. If they think attacking our weakest is our vulnerability, they have no idea what's coming. The long night ahead would be just the beginning of humanity's response. Earth's fleet was mobilizing, and soon the Voran Empire would learn a harsh lesson about human nature. Those who prey on the vulnerable awaken humanity's most formidable strength, our unwavering protection of those who cannot protect themselves. Admiral Thomas Grant stood at the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, surrounded by holographic displays of the solar system. Red markers indicating Voran ships had multiplied over the past 24 hours. Status report on Neptune mining colonies, Grant ordered, his voice calm despite the crisis unfolding. Colonel Ana Rodriguez stepped forward. "Not good, sir. We've lost contact with 3 of the 5 main facilities. The remaining 2 have activated emergency protocols and are evacuating to the underground shelters." Grant studied the tactical display. The Neptune colonies were humanity's most distant permanent settlement, established to harvest the valuable gases in Neptune's atmosphere. Nearly 800 people lived and worked there, mostly miners and their families. "The Vorons are concentrating their forces near Neptune," Grant observed. "They think the colonies are easy targets. They're about to learn otherwise," Rodriguez said. Grant nodded. "Deploy Battle Group 7. And get me Captain Stone on the line." Captain Alexis Stone had been asleep for barely 3 hours when the alert sounded. She was on the bridge of the UDF, defiant within minutes, still fastening her uniform jacket. "Captain on the bridge," announced her first officer, Commander Mike Taylor. Stone moved directly to the command chair. "Status: Admiral Grant is waiting to speak with you," Taylor reported, "and we've received emergency deployment orders." The main screen activated, showing Admiral Grant's face. He wasted no time on pleasantries. "Captain Stone, the Neptune colonies are under attack. Battle Group 7 is deploying, with Defiant as lead ship. Your primary mission is rescue and evacuation of civilians. Secondary objective is to engage the enemy and gather tactical data on their capabilities." Stone nodded. "Understood, Admiral. Time to arrival at Neptune. At maximum burn, 18 hours. But you'll likely encounter Voron ships before then." "We'll be ready, sir." "One more thing, Captain," Grant added, his expression grim. "Early reports suggest the Vorons are specifically targeting medical facilities and evacuation transports. They're going after the most vulnerable first." Stone felt a cold anger settle in her chest. "Then we'll show them the cost of such tactics." The UDF Defiant led a formation of 7 ships toward Neptune. As the newest and most advanced vessel in Earth's fleet, Defiant combined speed with firepower. Its sleek hull housed experimental weapons systems that had never been tested in actual combat. On the bridge, Captain Stone reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "The Vorons have a distinct tactical pattern," she told her officers. "They bypass defensive installations and military targets, focusing instead on civilian infrastructure. Based on the limited footage we've recovered, their ships are formidable, but not invulnerable." Commander Taylor pointed to the tactical display. "We're picking up distress signals from Mining Station Beta. It's under heavy attack." Stone made her decision quickly. "Adjust course. Maximum speed. Alert medical to prepare for casualties." As Defiant changed course, Stone studied the enemy ships on the display. The Voron vessels were unlike anything humans had built, organic-looking craft with curved asymmetrical designs. "They want to see how we respond when our weakest are attacked," Stone said quietly. "Let's show them." The scene that greeted Battle Group 7 as they approached Neptune was chaos. 3 Voron warships were systematically destroying the orbital platforms around Mining Station Beta. Escape pods and small transport ships fled in all directions, pursued by smaller Voron attack craft. "They're hunting the evacuees," Commander Taylor said in disgust. Stone's voice was steel. "Defensive Formation Alpha. Protect those transports at all costs. Weapons free." The Earth ships moved with precision, placing themselves between the fleeing civilians and the Voron attackers. Defiant took point, its advanced shields absorbing the first volley from the nearest Voron ship. "Return fire," Stone ordered. "Target their weapon systems only. I want prisoners if possible." Defiant's main guns fired, striking the lead Voron ship with surprising effect. The alien vessel shuddered, its forward section darkening as systems failed. "They weren't expecting resistance," Taylor observed. "They thought this would be easy." The battle intensified as the Vorons adjusted their tactics. 2 of their ships focused fire on Defiant, while the third continued pursuing civilian vessels. "Divert power to forward shields," Stone commanded. and launch interceptors to protect those transports. Small fighter craft shot from Defiance launch bays, racing toward the civilian ships. On the tactical display, Stone watched as one Voran vessel broke off to engage the new threat. "Sir," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vorans." Stone raised an eyebrow. "Let's hear it." The bridge speakers crackled with a harsh, mechanical voice, clearly translated through some kind of device. "Human vessels. Your resistance is noted. We are Voran. We test. We judge. Your weak ones fall easily." Stone leaned forward. "Open a channel." When the connection was established, she spoke clearly and deliberately. "Voran vessels, this is Captain Alexis Stone of the Earth Defense Force. You have attacked unarmed civilians and medical transports. In human culture, this is considered the act of cowards. Surrender now, or face the consequences." There was a pause before the reply came. "Interesting. You value your weak ones. This is unusual. We will study this aspect of your species further." The communication cut off abruptly. "They're powering up weapons again," reported the tactical officer. Stone's expression hardened. "Then they've made their choice. All ships, coordinated attack pattern. Show them what happens when you target those under our protection." For 3 hours, the battle raged around Neptune. The humans fought with a ferocity that seemed to surprise the Vorans. 2 Earth vessels were severely damaged, but the Defiant led a relentless counterattack that disabled one Voran ship and forced the others to retreat. As the last Voran vessel disappeared from their sensors, Stone ordered immediate rescue operations. "Status of mining station Beta?" she asked. "Heavily damaged, Captain, but the main habitat ring is intact. Approximately 300 survivors confirmed, with another 100 unaccounted for." Stone nodded. "Send in the medical teams. I want every survivor found and treated." As the rescue operations began, Stone received a private communication from Admiral Grant. "Well done, Captain. You've given us our first victory, and more importantly, valuable intelligence." Stone's face was grim. The Vorans seemed genuinely surprised that we would protect our vulnerable, sir. They called it unusual. Grant nodded. "That confirms our theory. They see compassion as weakness, something to exploit. In their culture, the strong apparently abandon the weak. A fatal misunderstanding on their part." Stone replied. "Indeed, we've intercepted communications between their ships. Their commander, someone called Drek, has requested reinforcements. They're planning something bigger." Stone looked out at the damaged mining station. "Then we'll be ready, sir. They've revealed something crucial about themselves today." "What's that, Captain?" "They don't understand that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our weapons or our technology. It's in our unwillingness to abandon each other." She paused. "And they just made it personal for every human in this fleet." As the call ended, Stone watched the medical ships docking with the damaged station. The Vorans had made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had assumed that targeting the vulnerable would demonstrate human weakness. Instead, they had awakened humanity's most formidable quality, the fierce, unwavering protection of those who cannot protect themselves. The Vorans had revealed their tactical doctrine, and now Earth would show them just how costly that mistake would be. The opening salvo had been fired. Now the real battle would begin. Admiral Grant paced the war room aboard the UDF Olympus, Earth's largest battleship. The central holographic table displayed the current positions of both human and Voran vessels throughout the solar system. Though the victory at Neptune had boosted morale, Grant knew the Vorans would adapt quickly. "They're regrouping near Saturn's rings," said Colonel Rodriguez, pointing to a cluster of red markers. "Reinforcements arrived 6 hours ago. We count at least 15 vessels now, including 3 larger than anything we've seen before." Grant stopped pacing and studied the map thoughtfully. "They've shown us their strategy. Target the weak, avoid direct military confrontation until they've assessed our capabilities." He looked up at the officers gathered around the table. It's time we use that against them. Operation Guardian, Grant announced. A plan that will turn the Voron's predatory nature into a trap. The officers leaned forward as Grant began outlining his strategy. The Vorons believe we're vulnerable because we protect our weakest. They see compassion as a flaw to exploit. Grant's voice hardened. Let's show them how wrong they are. 3 days later, Captain Stone stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as the medical transport ships formed their convoy near Jupiter. To all appearances, they were normal evacuation vessels, white hulls marked with red crosses, minimal defensive capabilities, slow engines. 20 ships in total, supposedly carrying wounded from the Neptune attack and civilian scientists from Jupiter's research stations. But appearances were deceiving. All ships report ready, Captain, Commander Taylor said. Stone nodded. Begin broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Make sure the distress calls sound authentic. Taylor gave the order, and soon the convoy was filling the communication channels with calls for assistance and reports of engine troubles. To any listening Voron ships, it would appear that a group of vulnerable, damaged vessels was struggling to reach Mars. Now we wait, Stone said. They didn't have to wait long. Within hours, their long-range sensors detected Voron ships changing course, moving toward the convoy's position just beyond Jupiter's orbit. 6 vessels approaching, reported the tactical officer. 3 destroyers and 3 smaller attack craft. Stone smiled grimly. Right on schedule. Time to spring the trap. Signal the fleet. Throughout the convoy, the medical ships began a subtle transformation. Hidden weapon ports opened along their hulls. Powerful engines, previously running at minimal capacity, surged to full power. And from behind Jupiter's largest moon, 5 Earth battleships emerged, their weapons charged and ready. The Vorons believe we would leave our medical ships unprotected, Stone said. A costly assumption. Aboard the lead Voron ship, Commander Drek observed the human convoy with anticipation. These human vessels were clearly damaged and vulnerable, perfect targets to continue testing this species' resolve. Prepare attack pattern, Drek ordered. Target the largest medical transport first. I want to see how the others respond when their weakest are destroyed. His tactical officer input the commands, but suddenly paused. Commander detecting energy spikes from the transport ships. They're powering weapons. Drek moved quickly to the sensor display. Impossible. Those are medical vessels. Sir, Earth warships detected behind Ganymede. We're surrounded. Drek's yellow eyes widened as he realized the truth. It's a trap. Captain Stone watched with satisfaction as the Voron ships frantically adjusted their formation. They took the bait. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Target their engines and weapon systems. I want them disabled, not destroyed. The battle erupted with sudden intensity. The disguised medical ships revealed themselves to be heavily armed escort vessels, designed to look harmless until the moment of attack. They formed a tight defensive perimeter while the Earth battleships closed in from behind. The Vorons are trying to break through our eastern flank, Taylor reported. Not today, Stone replied. Squadrons 2 and 3, close that gap. Show them no mercy. Earth fighters swarmed from their carriers, intercepting the Voron ships attempting to escape. The battle spread across a vast section of space, the darkness lit by weapons fire and explosions. Stone focused on the Voron command ship, a larger vessel directing the others. Target their communications array, she ordered. Let's isolate them from each other. Defiant's main guns fired, striking the Voron flagship with precision. The alien vessel shuddered, its communication systems going dark. They're confused, Taylor observed. Their ships are losing coordination. Stone nodded. Now for Phase 2. All ships, execute containment protocol. The Earth vessels began a complex maneuver, surrounding the Voron ships in an ever-tightening net. With their communications disrupted and escape routes blocked, the alien vessels found themselves in an impossible position. Voron ships are powering down weapons, reported the tactical officer. They're surrendering. Stone raised an eyebrow. That's unexpected. Open a channel to their flagship. After a moment, the main screen activated, showing Commander Drek. The Voran's appearance startled everyone on the bridge. Tall and thin with yellowish skin and large compound eyes like those of an insect. When he spoke, his voice was translated by a device at his neck. Human Captain. This deception. Unexpected. Effective. We acknowledge your tactical superiority in this engagement. Stone kept her expression neutral. Commander Drek, your ships targeted civilian and medical vessels, beings who could not defend themselves. In doing so, you've discovered something fundamental about humanity that you failed to understand. Drek's large eyes blinked slowly. Explain. When you threaten our most vulnerable, you don't expose our weakness. You awaken our greatest strength. Our compassion isn't a flaw. It's why we fight. The Voran commander seemed to consider this. And, interesting perspective. Different from Voran way. We abandon weak, strengthen species. And yet here you are, defeated by those who refuse to abandon anyone. Stone replied. Consider that carefully. Admiral Grant received the news of the victory with satisfaction, but no celebration. The captured Voran ships were being towed to a secure facility near Mars, and the crews were under guard. More importantly, they had sent a clear message. The Vorans are already adapting their strategy, Rodriguez reported. Their ships are no longer exclusively targeting civilian facilities. They're engaging our military vessels directly now. Grant nodded. Good. That means Operation Guardian worked. We've forced them to recognize us as equals, not just prey. What's our next moves, sir? Grant studied the tactical display, where a large concentration of Voran ships was gathering at the edge of the solar system. They'll be more cautious now, but also more aggressive. We've wounded their pride. He pointed to the display. Their main fleet is still out there, watching and waiting. This was just their advance force. Do you think they'll leave? Asked Rodriguez. Grant shook his head. No. Commander Drek's capture will force them to respond. They can't allow a defeat like this to go unchallenged. He straightened his uniform. We've won the first real battle, but the war is just beginning. Across the solar system, Earth's fleet moved into defensive positions. The victory at Jupiter had shifted the momentum, but everyone knew the Vorans would return in greater numbers. The strategic turn had been made. Humanity had shown that those who targeted their most vulnerable would face not weakness, but the full, righteous fury of Earth's defenders. The trap had worked perfectly. Now they needed to prepare for the inevitable counterattack. The mood in Earth's central command chamber was tense. Admiral Grant stood at the head of the long table, facing the 12 members of the military council. The wall screens displayed real-time updates from across the solar system. Earth's defenses, Voran ship movements, and casualty reports from the recent battles. The Vorans have withdrawn to the Kuiper Belt, Grant explained, pointing to the tactical display. But our intelligence suggests they're regrouping, not retreating. Their main fleet is still approaching, at least 40 capital ships. Defense Minister Park leaned forward. What about the prisoners? Has Commander Drek provided any useful information? Some, Grant replied. The Vorans are a strictly hierarchical species. They expand their empire by testing potential opponents, targeting the weak first to gauge the overall response. If they deem a species worthy, they offer alliance or vassalage. If not, he didn't need to finish the sentence. General Bill Mason, head of Earth's ground forces, slammed his fist on the table. They've killed over 2,000 civilians, destroyed 5 colonies. We should hit them back hard. Target their support ships, their supply lines. His eyes narrowed. Let them feel what it's like to have their vulnerable ones attacked. A murmur of agreement spread through the room. I disagree, said a quiet voice from the end of the table. All heads turned toward Commander James Wilson, who had been silent until now. As the youngest member of the council and head of the ethics division, Wilson often found himself at odds with the more aggressive generals. "You have something to add, Commander?" Grant asked. Wilson stood slowly. "If we target their non-combatants, their support vessels, their medical ships, assuming they even have such things, what would that make us?" He looked around the table. "We'd become exactly what we're fighting against." "This is war, not a philosophy class," Mason retorted. "They started this by targeting our weakest. And that's precisely why we can't do the same," Wilson insisted. "Our moral principles aren't just luxuries for peacetime. They define who we are, even, especially, in war." The room erupted in argument. Some council members supported Mason's call for retribution, while others aligned with Wilson's ethical stance. Admiral Grant let the debate continue for several minutes before raising his hand for silence. "Both perspectives have merit," he said carefully. "But I believe there's a third option, one that maintains our principles while demonstrating our resolve." All eyes turned to him expectantly. "We show overwhelming force," Grant continued, "but we direct it precisely at their military capabilities. We don't become what we despise, but we ensure they never threaten our vulnerable again." He turned to the tactical display. "And I believe Captain Stone has already begun developing the technology to make this possible." In the research labs aboard the UDF Defiant, Captain Stone examined the new weapon system with mixed feelings. The captured Voran technology had provided invaluable insights, allowing Earth scientists to develop countermeasures with remarkable speed. "The neutralizer is ready for field testing," said Dr. Ray Wilson, the lead weapons developer. "It targets their ship's energy systems without destroying the vessels themselves. Essentially, it renders them powerless without killing the crews." Stone studied the schematics, "And you're certain it won't cause their life support to fail?" "Positive. We've tested it extensively on the captured Voran scout ship. It disables their weapons, engines, and communications, but leaves basic life support intact." Stone nodded slowly. "A weapon that neutralizes without destroying. It's exactly what Admiral Grant requested." Dr. Wilson hesitated. "There's something else you should see, Captain." He led her to another section of the lab, where a holographic display showed detailed scans of Voran biology. "We've been studying the prisoners, particularly Commander Drek," Wilson explained. "The Vorans have a unique neurological structure. Their brains process fear differently than ours. They literally cannot understand why we would risk ourselves for others." Stone frowned. "Are you saying their behavior is biological, not cultural?" "It appears to be both. Their society reinforces what their biology predisposes them toward, seeing the protection of the vulnerable as irrational." Wilson pointed to a specific brain scan. "However, they're capable of learning. Commander Drek's neural patterns have shown subtle changes since his capture. He's trying to understand us." Stone considered this information carefully. "So they can change, adapt their thinking?" "Potentially, yes, but it would require significant exposure to different values." Stone's communicator chimed, interrupting the conversation. "Captain, we've detected a Voran scout ship approaching Mars orbit. It's broadcasting on our frequencies. They're requesting to speak with you specifically." Stone exchanged a surprised look with Dr. Wilson. "I'm on my way to the bridge." When Stone arrived, the main screen showed a Voran officer, not Drek, but one of similar rank based on the markings on his uniform. "I am Sub-Commander Krell," the Voran announced. "I speak for the Voran High Command in Commander Drek's absence." Stone took her position at the command chair. "This is Captain Stone of the UDF Defiant. State your purpose, Sub-Commander." "We have observed your species' unusual behavior," Krell said, his translated voice betraying no emotion. "You protect your weakest units at great cost. This is inefficient, yet you have demonstrated significant military capability." The Voran paused. "We wish to understand this contradiction." Stone chose her words carefully. "There is no contradiction. Our strength comes precisely from our protection of those who cannot protect themselves. It is not inefficiency. It is our greatest purpose." Krell seemed to consider this. We have terms to propose. Return Commander Drek and our captured vessels. In exchange, we will withdraw from your system and classify your species as unsuitable for testing. Unsuitable, Stone repeated. Your methods are incompatible with our evaluation standards. You are anomalous. Stone couldn't help the small smile. I'm afraid those terms are unacceptable, Sub-Commander. We have terms of our own. Remove all Voran forces from our solar system immediately. Release any human prisoners you've taken. Then we can discuss the return of Commander Drek and your vessels. The Voran's compound eyes narrowed. You are not in a position to make demands. I believe our recent victories suggest otherwise. The communication ended abruptly. Stone turned to her tactical officer. Track that scout ship. I want to know exactly where it goes. Back in the council chamber, Admiral Grant received Stone's report with grim satisfaction. So they're interested in negotiation, however one-sided their offer, he said. I don't trust them, Mason growled. This could be a delaying tactic while their main fleet arrives. Commander Wilson spoke up, or it could be a genuine attempt to understand us. Dr. Wilson's research suggests the Vorans might be capable of changing their perspective. Grant nodded thoughtfully. Either way, we continue with our plan. Captain Stone will leave a special mission into Voran-controlled space. The council members looked surprised. A mission? Park asked. What kind of mission? Intelligence suggests they're holding human survivors from the Neptune colonies on one of their command ships. Grant explained. Captain Stone will lead a rescue operation, behind enemy lines. Mason shook his head. That's extremely risky. Yes, Grant agreed. But we don't abandon our people, even when it's dangerous to save them. That's the message we need to send the Vorans. He looked around the table. That's how we win this war, not just with weapons, but with unwavering principles. As the council meeting adjourned, the moral dilemma had been resolved. Earth would fight. Fiercely, decisively, but would not abandon the values that defined humanity. They would show no mercy to those who targeted the vulnerable, but neither would they become what they fought against. The Voran Empire was about to learn that humanity's moral strength was as formidable as its military might. The vast darkness of space beyond Pluto's orbit was broken by the steady advance of Earth's assembled fleet. 127 ships moved in perfect formation. Battleships, carriers, cruisers, and support vessels. At the center flew the UDF Olympus, Admiral Grant's flagship, flanked by the battle-scarred Defiant under Captain Stone's command. On the bridge of the Olympus, Grant watched the tactical display with steady eyes. The Voran fleet waited ahead, a force nearly matching Earth's in number but exceeding it in raw firepower. All ships report ready, Admiral, Colonel Rodriguez announced. Defense systems at maximum. The neutralizer technology has been distributed to all frontline vessels. Grant nodded. And the special rescue team. In position. Captain Stone's strike force is ready to launch once the main engagement begins. Grant took a deep breath. This was humanity's moment of truth. The past 3 weeks had seen skirmishes across the solar system, but this would be the decisive battle. The full might of Earth against the Voran Empire's invasion force. Open a channel to the Voran command ship, Grant ordered. The main screen flickered, then revealed a large Voran officer adorned with elaborate markings, High Commander Vrax, leader of the Voran expedition. Human Admiral. Vrax said, his translated voice cold and mechanical. Your species continues to resist evaluation. Inefficient. Wasteful. Grant stood tall. High Commander Vrax, this is Admiral Thomas Grant of the United Earth Defense Force. Your forces have attacked our colonies, murdered our civilians, and targeted our most vulnerable. These actions stop today. The Voran commander's compound eyes gleamed. We follow the natural order. The strong survive. The weak perish. This is universal law. Not our law, Grant replied firmly. Humanity stands united by our commitment to protect each other. especially those who cannot protect themselves. He paused. I offer you one opportunity to withdraw from our system peacefully. Release your human prisoners, and there need be no further bloodshed. Vrax made a sound that the translator didn't convert, perhaps laughter or scorn. You offer mercy from a position of weakness. Your compassion blinds you to reality. Human, we have studied your tactics. Your need to protect your weak points makes you vulnerable. Grant's expression remained steady. That's where you're wrong, Commander. Our compassion isn't our weakness. It's the source of our strength. And today, you'll understand why. He signaled to Rodriguez to cut the transmission. All ships, Grant commanded, execute Operation Final Guardian. As the massive fleets engaged, Captain Stone led a small team aboard a modified stealth shuttle. While the main battle drew the Voron's attention, her mission was critical. Rescue the human prisoners from the Voron command carrier stationed at the rear of their formation. Approaching target, reported Lieutenant Dan Foster, the shuttle pilot. Their defenses are focused outward toward the main battle. Stone checked her tactical display. The shuttle's advanced stealth technology, partly developed from captured Voron systems, had gotten them this far undetected. Team leader, status, Stone asked over the secure channel. Ready, Captain, replied Commander Mike Taylor from the shuttle's hold, where 20 elite soldiers waited in full combat gear. We get in, find our people, and get out while the Vorons are busy with our fleet. Stone nodded. Remember, we've studied their ship layouts from Drek's captured vessel. The prisoner section should be on the lower decks, and the neutralizer devices should disable their internal weapons without affecting life support. The shuttle slipped closer to the massive Voron carrier, approaching a secondary hangar that their intelligence suggested would be less defended. 30 seconds to contact, Foster announced. No sign they've detected us. Stone took a deep breath. Let's bring our people home. On the main battlefield, Earth's fleet executed a complex defensive formation that confused the Voron commanders. Rather than separating their military vessels from support ships as the Vorons expected, the human fleet integrated them completely. Medical ships protected by destroyers, civilian transports flanked by battlecruisers. They're trying to find our weak points, Grant observed as the Voron ships probed different sections of their formation. They still don't understand. The first Voron attack came swiftly. A wedge formation of destroyers attempting to break through Earth's eastern flank, where several medical frigates were stationed. They took the bait, Rodriguez said. Grant nodded. Activate Defense Grid Alpha. Deploy the neutralizer. As the Voron ships closed in, expecting to find vulnerable targets, they instead encountered a wall of specialized energy fields. The neutralizer technology, derived from their own systems, targeted the Voron ships with precision. One by one, their weapons went silent, their engines failed, and their communications died. First wave neutralized, reported the tactical officer. 11 Voron ships disabled, 0 destroyed. Grant allowed himself a small smile. Begin Phase 2. Inside the Voron command carrier, Stone's team moved swiftly through the corridors. The neutralizer devices had worked perfectly, disabling the ship's internal defense systems without alerting the main bridge. Life signs ahead, Taylor reported, checking his scanner. Definitely human. They approached a sealed door guarded by 2 Voron soldiers. Before the aliens could react, Taylor's team fired stun weapons, another technology adapted from Voron designs. Clear, Taylor announced as the guards collapsed. Stone examined the door's locking mechanism. Same design as on Drek's ship. Lieutenant Park, you're up. The team's tech specialist stepped forward, attaching a bypass device to the control panel. After a tense moment, the door slid open. Inside, they found what they'd been hoping for. 63 human survivors from the Neptune colonies, confined but alive. United Earth Defense Force, Stone announced to the stunned prisoners. We're here to take you home. A thin man with a medical insignia stepped forward. Captain, we thought everyone had forgotten about us. Stone placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. That's not how humanity works, Doctor. We never leave our people behind. On the Olympus, Grant watched as the battle unfolded exactly as planned. The Voran fleet, expecting to find weakness in Earth's protection of its support ships, instead encountered a perfectly coordinated defensive system. They're falling back, Rodriguez reported. Their forward vessels are trying to regroup. And Stone's team. Extraction successful, Admiral. All prisoners recovered. The shuttle is returning to the Defiant. Grant nodded with satisfaction. Now for the final message. All ships, execute closing maneuver. Earth's fleet began an intricate pattern surrounding the remaining active Voran ships. The neutralizer technology had disabled nearly half their fleet without destroying a single vessel, a demonstration of both power and restraint that the Vorans clearly hadn't expected. High Commander Vrax is hailing us, the communications officer reported. Grant straightened his uniform. On screen, the Voran commander appeared, his composure noticeably shaken. Your tactics are unexpected, Admiral. You could destroy our vessels, yet you merely disable them. As I told you, Commander, our strength comes from our compassion, not despite it. Grant's voice was firm, but not triumphant. We fight to protect, not to destroy. But make no mistake, we will show no mercy to those who target our vulnerable. Vrax was silent for a moment. The human prisoners have been recovered from our command carrier, an impressive feat. We don't abandon our people, Grant replied simply. Now, I'll ask once more. Will you withdraw from our system peacefully? The Voran commander seemed to struggle internally before responding. The Voran Empire has existed for 8,000 years. We have never retreated. He paused. But we have never encountered a species like yours. You fight with both ferocity and restraint, a contradiction we must reconsider. Is that a yes, Commander? We will withdraw to evaluate these findings. Your species requires further study, from a distance. 1 week later, Admiral Grant stood with Captain Stone on the observation deck of Earth Defense Headquarters. Below them, the blue-green planet rotated peacefully. The last Voran ship crossed Neptune's orbit this morning, Grant said. Long-range sensors show their fleet is continuing outward, away from our system. Stone nodded. And Commander Drek. Released as agreed. But not before he had some interesting conversations with Commander Wilson and the Ethics Division. Grant smiled slightly. It seems our prisoner developed some unusual ideas during his captivity. Such as, that perhaps the Voran way isn't the only way. That protection of the vulnerable might not be inefficiency but a different kind of strength. Grant turned to face her. He requested permission to remain behind, actually. Said he wanted to learn more. Stone raised her eyebrows in surprise. The High Command wouldn't allow that, I imagine. No, but it suggests something important. They can change. They can learn. Together, they watched Earth turn below them, its cities glittering in the darkness. We showed them something they didn't expect, Stone said quietly. Not just our weapons or our tactics, but our fundamental nature. We proved that compassion isn't weakness, it's humanity's greatest strength. Grant nodded, and sent a message to anyone else watching from the stars. Earth protects its own. The vulnerable were their targets, and our fleet showed no mercy. The solar system was quiet once more. But humanity remained vigilant, its fleets patrolling the outer reaches, its colonies rebuilding. They had faced their first contact with an alien civilization and emerged not just victorious, but with their principles intact. The Voran Empire had learned a crucial lesson. Those who prey on the weak would face the full righteous power of humanity united. It was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.